Hi guys, welcome to issue 9 of my review series on the Imperium Magazine. This week we'll be reviewing issue 9. Stunningly. This one's going out a bit late this week. The reason why being I've been sick as a fucking dog. I've caught some sort of head cold which has got a continuous cough, a mild temperature and a loss of my sense of taste. But which according to both PCR and LDF tests, a lot of LDF tests, isn't COVID. Also because of my job and my status as an asthmatic, I've had 3 jabs so far, so so that's laid me out for a bit. And also, whilst I didn't have COVID, Emma, my middle child, has had COVID and has been isolated in the house. I've been having to do things to help take care of her and so on and so on and so forth. It's had a bit of a stress on her mental health, it's had a bit of stress on my mental health, and I had to focus on that. So this is being recorded on Friday night, although technically Saturday morning actually, because that's how I sleep, or don't in fact. But without further ado, and possibly some more do later, here is Imperium Magazine issue 9. Get this one open. Probably can't. Got a little fold out. Cool. Got some lovely pictures on the back, and most importantly, got some bases. Can't go without bases. I'm cutting down on the caffeine in the next few weeks, so hopefully there'll be a little less twitching in the videos, but there might be a little more yawning. Straight in with the plastic, we have got what seems to be part of a double sprue. You can see the edges there are slightly white, which contains Necron warriors and scarabs. It says there are 13 miniatures with this issue. I'll quickly show you the front of there. 13 miniatures with this issue, part 1 and 2. Now, having checked it, there are 13 miniatures. Yeah, there looks to be about 13 miniatures or 13 warriors in total. I'm not sure how they get 13 miniatures in this issue. You've got one guy there, you've got one guy there, you've got a third guy there, and if you count the Necrons as 1, 2, you have 5 miniatures. 6 miniatures that I can see. 6 is not 13. I believe that's a misprint. I think they mean there's 30 miniatures in 30 miniatures with these 2 issues. I think the way they've written it, as we can clearly see, it says 30 miniatures with this issue, part 1 of 2, which I assume they mean 30 miniatures over 2 issues, and this is part 1 of 2 because it's a broken off part of a double sprue. Still a good deal. At £9 for a magazine. The 30 miniature Necron Warrior box sets cost £29. So you're saving £11 off of a box set. That's more than 30%. That's more than a third. So that's a good saving over 2 magazines anyway. But you've got the options of the big weapons or the double barrel weapons. You've got a good saving. As with all the Necron miniatures, you've got a lot of nice deep detail and a little bit of nice shallower detail, which is all going to look pretty good. You've got multiple heads to use. This one's a copy on this one. Here we go. Games Workshop copyright 2020. So this sprue is only a year old, meaning it's unlikely that it's going to be updated or I'm trying to think of the word, but it's unlikely they're going to come out with a new box of Necron guys that look so much better than these guys. You don't want to play these guys anymore in the near future. Obviously, that's what they've done in the past, and that's what we want them to do because we want constantly improving miniatures. But with these ones where they are part of previous big box sets they're giving away, it can be a good idea to know when your miniature was made to decide whether or not you're going to buy a box set, because if a miniature's like 5 or 6 years old and you buy a box set of them because you're building a big army, you might find that in a few months' time your army doesn't look as good as everybody else's because they brought out a new set of miniatures. Obviously, Primaris Marines are a case in point. They kind of reached as good as they could look with their old Space Marine miniatures and the philosophy behind them with the larger heads and the hands. They had to gear up and they had to make the models look better because other companies were catching up with them and had overtaken them. So you got this massive overhaul of miniatures that I fucking love. Frankly, I think they're awesome. But it did mean that everybody who bought a previous army now looked like they had a stumpy army. And it made everybody else's army look less good by comparison, which made people sad. And it's always sad to see people sad. So these guys are going to be the go-to miniatures for Necron Warriors for the next few years at least. So that's a pretty good thing. You've got 2 big bases for the Scarabs and 4 bases for the Necron Warriors, which is how I should have counted in the first place, because there are 4 Diddy bases and 2 big bases, which gives you 6 miniatures. Now I know some people might say, "Oh, look at all the Scarabs," but whilst there are loads of little Scarabs, they're one miniature. So that's pretty cool. But like I say, still pretty good despite the slightly misworded description there. Maybe you think it makes sense. I'm just looking at it as misworded. Obviously, signed by our very own Tomb Lord Neil. First, we've got Warrior Phalanx, the Silent Legion. Necron warriors form the core of the Necron legions. They go to war in phalanxes. No, they don't. Standing shoulder to shoulder, they lumber forward and target their unfortunate foes with steady fire from Gor's weapons. Or Gauss weapons, possibly. They call them phalanxes because it's an old-fashioned name, but a phalanx is actually when shield warriors stand sort of together so their shields are overlapping so they protect each other. Orange juice. Whereas while the Necrons wander on together, they don't actually interlock, they move like a standard unit. But it sounds cool. It goes on to explain about dynastic glyphs, which are awesome little Necron glyphs which represent each house. They're pretty wicked. Gives more about the Phalanx and describes the 2 different guns, the Gauss or Gor's Reaper and the Gauss or Gor's Flayer. Weirdly enough, they've done it in reverse, because you've got the Gor's Reaper says more compact than the Gor's Flayer. The double-barreled Reaper is far easier for a Necron to fire whilst moving, so that's kind of your bolter or assault gun. And then it says, like all Gauss or Gauss weapons, the Gor's Flayer beam disrupts the atomic structure of all that it strikes. So, for some reason, you're starting with that one, comparing it to that one, as opposed to the other way around, which seems a bit odd. The majority of Necrons, of the Necron army's basic weapons use something called Gauss or Gauss, which in this case is a beam of energy that it says disrupts, but it operates much like a disintegration ray. One of the reasons they call them flayers and reapers is because what it does is where it hits you, it just disintegrates or flays the outside layer, kind of digging into you like some sort of mining beam or mining laser. Only instead of cutting or blowing up, it literally just disintegrates the molecules that it hits. So it'll hit your chest and drive its way straight through, but it'll disintegrate the molecules at the front and then disintegrate the next layer and the next layer as it shoots through like a laser. As it shoots through, appearing, yeah, very similar to a laser, obviously, but different and cooler. Whereas a laser, for example, will heat up and melt what it's going through. As will a plasma gun. A bolter will hit something, explode, and rip massive chunks out of you. This destroys it at the molecular level. The advantage to the Gauss weapons is that they, and I'm going to change it each time I use it probably, is that they, I don't know if they still can in 9th, but they used to be able to tear through anything up to and including tanks, because it didn't matter what it was, they were tearing it apart at the molecular level. So where they were breaking down molecular bonds, it just took them longer to dig through metal than it did to dig through flesh. Got one of these nice little battle records here. Again, we've got a couple of few things to roll. Battle damage, exposed wiring, damage location, gifts of aeons or eons, your reinforced necrodermis and weapon stabilizers. So that's pretty cool. Next we've got Canoptic Scarabs and Inquisitor Obi-Wan Kenobi, apparently. Swarming automatons, the ravenous canoptic constructs seek only to atomize living material and recycle it to the benefit of the Necron race. Yeah, a lot of Necron technology basically involves breaking stuff down to its base atoms or to its base components and then rebuilding it on the atomic level into what they want, meaning they can turn sand into steel and various other things. Obviously, it doesn't quite work like that, and that would either take or release huge amounts of energy in the real world, but in the sci-fi world, it's good enough. It goes through several bits and pieces about them. Explain they have anti-grav propulsion, flensing claws and mandibles, things like that. Oh, sorry. It has mind shackle scarabs and nanoscarabs. Necronos contains many forms of scarabs. Mind shackle scarabs come in many sizes, but also to enslave mortal beings to the Necron will, which is nifty. And your various forms of nanoscarabs have been observed. Some appear to repair the bodies of the Necron masters, while others strip flesh from the opponent's bones. So you've got little bugs climbing over the dude there, repairing him. And here you've got a battle record thing here. Bringing more slight protocol, no details in boxes below. They're very much encouraging you to get invested and get involved with the unit names, with commemorating your battles and stuff like that. And I do too. I totally recommend you do this. This is what I've been talking about for weeks. Is one of the best things about this magazine. They're trying to make the games. They're trying to make the games more fun. There's a lot more in this magazine that seems designed to enhance your gaming experience than they were in the previous magazines. Mortal Realms or I want to say Crusades now, but my brain has totally failed because that's not what it was. Anyway, you know what I mean. Brains. Next we have Ultramarines, Courage and Honor. Though their exploits on the field of battle are the stuff of legends, the Ultramarines are more than mere soldiers. Each is well versed in tactics, statecraft, diplomacy, hair drying, nails, and other such. Yeah, whatever. Oh, as they are Blade and Bolt. Sorry, I went off on a thing there. It then goes on to describe the Victrix Guard. Ultramarines trains in the arts of statecraft and warfare. Handpicked, they serve Rabute Guliman. They serve as his personal honor guard, as well as acting as diplomatic envoys to his allies. This is it's one of the weirder bits, but it is actually also one of the cooler bits about Ultramarines. In they do a lot of stuff not on the battlefield. A lot of the guys who are on the battlefield are massively focused and they're pure warriors and they do nothing else. Ultramarines, along with other Space War chapters, don't just do that. They deal with the whole shebang. they deal with statecraft, they deal with empire building, they deal with maintaining alliances, all of which is actually part of war. A lot of people seem to think that if you want to be the best warrior, you have to be exclusively a warrior, and that's historically not true. If you look at the modern army, there as much engineers, there's as much repairmen, there's as much rescue troops as they are soldiers, and it's that ability. And again, with the Roman, it's that ability that makes our armies so effective. And again, you look at the Roman army, an army that beat almost every army it faced, for a while at least. It was when they were the Roman infantry. It was when they were this corps of soldier, engineer, and builders that they did their best work. A lot of people sort of again refer to the Spartans saying, "Oh, the Spartans were pure soldiers," which is not quite true. The Spartans had to spend a lot of time ministering to their land and taking care of their land and things there, because you have to remember the Spartans were only able to dedicate their life to soldiery because they'd enslaved two of their neighboring people and forced them into servitude beneath them as slaves. And when you compare them to Athenians, who were soldiers, who were potters, who were builders, and who did all these other things, and had an army that, they had an army of the people that they did their jobs and then they trained regularly to be soldiers. There's jokes in the movie 400 about, oh, they bought things and we bought soldiers, but the Spartans faced the Athenians and a lot of times in battle, and the Athenians actually came out only slightly ahead. But the Spartans didn't wipe the floor with the Athenians. If you think this whole pure warrior ideology works, one of the prime examples being the Spartans, even in a battle where they both agreed to take an equal number of troops, and this actually happened, the Spartans lost to the Athenians. The Athenians won. Apparently it's by like 1 or 2 troops, and the Spartans were so upset by this, they went and defaced all the Athenian bodies to try and cover up who won. This being a pure, dedicated soldier doesn't actually guarantee victory. Whilst it sounds very cool, other skills cross over, and having those other skills, being able to build defenses, being able to lay roads, have supply lines, often meant that you beat your enemies. The idea of elite pure warriors such as the Spartans or the medieval knights being this amazing, unstoppable thing just isn't really true. There's an element to it, but another example, if you look at knights used to fight either in massive formations in which they needed a lot of support and they needed foot soldiers to stop getting flanked, archers to help them out, or they used to fight in small formations called lances. And with a lance, you'd have a big knight smashing things, but you'd have a couple of lightly armored men at arms to stop that light knight getting flanked and just stabbed in the sides. A couple of archers to keep other archers at bay and stop them just sniping weak points in the knight's armor. And you had this because being a pure warrior can enable you to do some amazing things, but the one thing it doesn't enable you to do is be sure of winning a war or a battle, weirdly enough. The Ultramarines are an example of this. They're very much supposed to draw from the Romans. And they follow this ethos that to win a war requires a lot more skills than just the ability to fight. Hence the Ultramarines have won a lot more battles than many of the other chapters. In aggregate, and hence they've also kept a lot more peace. They've grown more troops. One of the reasons that the Ultramarines have the most descendant troops, which is something that they pushed in 40k, isn't that they're amazing so much as that they win battles, they consolidate, they empire build, and they grow. So they have the ability to then go, right, we've got nearly 2,000 people in the Ultramarines, we're going to separate some off, make another one. a couple of decades later, we've won our battles, we've kept growing, we've kept consolidating, we've had the appropriate moments of peace as well as war. We know, there's now nearly 2,000 Ultramarines again. We're going to split off and make another separate chapter. And they've just kept going and going and going like this throughout the centuries. Other Ultramarines have had wins and losses, but compared to a lot of the other chapters, they've been on a fairly steady upward progress. Whereas you get some of the other chapters, like for example, the Imperial Fist, some of their sub chapters, like the Crimson Fist, we've nearly been wiped out and had to rebuild. You've had other chapters again that have been so decimated. They've had to call successor chapters back into their ranks to rebuild them and things like that. Whereas the Ultramarines have been, because of the way they work, have been on a pretty much upward trajectory since the heresy and since their devastation there. And as I say, that's because the Ultramarine chapter embodies almost all aspects of war, and there are a few other chapters that do that. The Dark Angels kind of try and do that in a bit of a dark and creepy way. The Space Wolves again kind of try and do that. They like the Ultramarines are very much supportive of the planets that they draw from. Although they try and engage in a constant state of war because they're constantly trying to filter out the weaker ones and progress and push the strong ones, because they are limited or have been limited by the curses, by the Canis Helix and the Wolfen on them. Whether that's going to keep going, I don't know. But no chapter has been successful at being an everyman and encompassing the whole of war as the Ultramarines. It's just they're also the most vanilla in terms of what it means to be a Space Marine, because they're meant to be the one that you can take any Space Marine box set and make it Ultramarines. If like me, you play Space Wolves, you have to buy Space Wolf box sets to make your guys look more like Space Wolves. So that's pretty cool. It then goes on to some of the it gives some personal report from Squad Sylvestus, which is just a random name to come up with. Next, we've got Age of the Witches. Warp powers abound. To the untrained mind, the warp offers only damnation. According to Inquisitor Gregorina Praxia. The opening of the Great Rift had many terrible effects on the galaxy. Some were immediately obvious and utterly catastrophic. Others took longer to become apparent, only revealing themselves as the corrupting power of the warp bled out across the galaxy. Basically, it's going on about how there's witches and psychers and how the expansion of the Great Rift has created more psychers. It was always a problem. In the background, humanity is on the edge of ascending to being a psychic race. It was something the Emperor very carefully managed. From what I understand, he slowed it down so that he could be at a certain point and that he could be ready for it. And so that when humanity ascended to being a psychic race, he'd ascend to being, kind of the god of the psychic race. And therefore, he'd be able to protect humanity from the warp. He'd be able to guide humanity. He'd effectively become humanity's chaos god in this, and provide a level of protection for humanity in the same way that orcs have their own gods, Gorka Morka. And whilst orcs are susceptible and can be taken over by chaos or worship chaos, they are very much protected by Gorka Morka. Otherwise, with their warlike nature, they'd have just gone straight over to they just get straight over to Khorne, almost on a regular basis. I've seen a lot of people questioning whether recently on Facebook whether orcs can be affected by chaos. Unless they've massively retconned, and I haven't seen it. Yes, orcs can be affected by chaos. Orcs are one of GW's go-to chaos races for years. Orcs being degenerate would degenerate it down to worshipping chaos, particularly particularly in the old world. If you ever looked at any of the Chaos Warbands, they always contained at least one orc, usually with tentacles. They have Minotaurs, Beastmen, and you had a similar thing. And you had a similar thing in 40k. If Chaos can get in there, and if Chaos can divert them from Gork and Mork to somebody else, orcs have been and have repeatedly been either converted to Chaos or misled by Chaos. I forget which comic, but GW used to do this awesome thick comic book thing in black and white. They had an entire orc space fleet suddenly randomly attack the Imperium, and it looked like they were on the side of the Chaos. But what actually happened is a demon had managed to possess an orc and effectively start a warg, but not actually a warg because the psychic energy wasn't his. I'm not sure how that worked, but it's happened. But anyway, because the Emperor carefully kind of held it back and then disappeared, the Imperium has just been killing psychers and sacrificing them to the Emperor like 1,000 a day, which in no way will mean that if the Emperor ever returns, he's batshit crazy because he has 1,000 dying and tortured souls filling him. But we'll see. Obviously, with the expansion of the Rift, more psychers are coming out, and nastier psychers are coming out. At some point, I'll twitch, my head will go sideways, and a demon will spew out, at which point you will all be possessed in the name of Zinch. Ha ha, fuck you guys. It's going to happen. But they're going through quite a bit of this here. And again, here we're covering sanctioned and alien psychers. The Imperium, despite saying psychers should all be killed on site, does use its own psychers in contravention of the rules of the Council of Nicaea. It covers alien psychers and it also covers chaos psychers, who are often talked about like they're wizards and sorcerers. Functionally, they tend to be very much the same. Obviously, certain psychers have access to powers related to their armies or species. Human psychers going one way, alien psychers going another way. The powers tend to be very similar, and they tend to have access to all the same ones. The main difference is fluff-wise. A sanctioned psyker is someone who's trained incredibly hard and rigorously to be able to resist chaos, and they're not always successful. Alien psychers come in dozens of forms. And much of the magic is innate to their species, whether it's Tyranids with them projecting the powers of the hive mind, Eldar with them seeing the ebb and flow of the future, and things like that. And then you've got the chaos psychers who don't have training and don't have sort of innate skill, but rather they've thrown them up the chaos gods, so secrets have been revealed to them, and often it's the chaos gods themselves or their servants who are stopping these psychers just being torn apart by demons. Although that does happen a lot with chaos psychers anyway. Slightly less than it would on average, I guess, because why buy a dog and bark yourself? But it still happens more often than psychers that stay away from chaos. Next, we've got the Solus cohorts. This is another story, just to give you some more inspiration for the narrative campaign we're playing. Got some cool stuff there. Some stuff on the inner workings and stuff there, and a nice little story that I won't spoil. Next, we've got the How to Build Necrons, and this is a massive difference between this week's magazine and last week's magazine. It is massively inconsistent, but not at the same time not not terribly, terribly bad. You've got, I'll put in the folder thing. You've got this much, which is where are we? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So, excluding the front cover, you've got 10 pages front, if you can, front and back, worth of fluff. Last week you had 2 pages, 1 page front and back, and then it was straight onto the body. So there is a bit of inconsistency in that, but at the same time, it's not particularly terrible. Most of us are collecting these guys for the models. But it does seem a little weird. Next we've got the how to build the Necron Warriors. These guys are push fit. You don't need to use glue. I almost always do because I find that it holds it together better, strangely enough. But again, it's up to you. Again, there are a lot of bits on these guys, and I'll go back to the thing here. You can see where they are quite pointy and quite thin. If I hold it there, you can see some of the where are we? Yeah, here's some of the edges of the weapons, and as you can see, there is not much to that. It's reasonably thick. You take that, you look at some of the bits of cabling coming off. It's going to be a gently to build those, and obviously to pack those and move those anywhere, you're going to want to be very careful. Next we're into the depths, which is another mission briefing for another combat using the battle mats. We're covering everything here. Damage. When a model fails its weapon, its save against a weapon, it loses this many wounds. So that's pretty cool. They're covering damage this week. They're covering pistols. We've got pistols, rapid fire, and melee covered. Rapid fire doubles the attack if the target was within range. If you haven't been playing for a while, that's improvement over the previous definition of rapid fire in 6th or 7th ed, where it was if you were in half range and hadn't moved. Now you can move and fire. You've got pistols. Pistols can be used within engagement range, but they can only target models with engagement range when doing so. A pistol, basically that means a pistol is an additional weapon when you're fighting hand-to-hand combat. Melee, this weapon can only be used. Melee weapons. Weapon can only be used in the fight phase when within engagement range of the enemy. Pistol. Yeah, pistols can be used within engagement range. A lot of other guns can't. They also tend to have a range, usually of 12. We've got an exception here with the Primaris Lieutenant we built a few weeks back anyway, who has a Volkite, a Neo-Volkite pistol with a range of 15. But each thing is each thing. So you've got a lot of cool stuff there. You've got the roll to wound table, which we have roll to wounds now. We weren't doing the start of the magazine. It used to be like a square graph. Now they put it as a table like this. It's still the same thing roughly. Twice or more, you only need to roll a 2+. If you're stronger, or the weapon is stronger than the opponent's toughness, you only need to roll a 3+. If they're equal, you need to roll a 4+. If your weapon strength is lower than your opponent's toughness, you need a 5+. And if the strength is half or less, you need a 6. In the opponent's toughness, you need a 6+. The 5+ is worth noting, particularly for things such as Space Marine aggressors or Ultramarines, where they have a strength of 5. Most weapons on the battlefield have a strength of 4, or rather most of your basic weaponry, meaning that a lot of those guys are rolling. You have to roll that 1 higher, and it does make quite a bit of difference to your unit's survivability. So that is actually very important. It covers the Necron's turn, it covers how to move, things like that. With the Scarabs, charging, we've got charging and fighting, you've got the Space Marines, moving, shooting, charging, fighting you expect, just a couple of pages of that there. Nothing particularly amazing. If we go through, if we go back and look at the stats of what we've got here at the moment, no, we're using the Royal Wardens in this one. So we've got the D stats added in. For example, on a Primaris Captain, a Plasma Pistol has 1D, a Master Power Sword has 2. On an Overlord, he has a Void Scythe which has 3D, or a D value of 3. Meaning for every hit it does 3 wounds. You will occasionally get weapons with strengths such as with a D level of D6, and I don't mean D6, I mean D6 or D3, meaning that you roll a dice to determine how much damage that does. It can be a bit unreliable because sometimes you'll have weapons with D6 hits and causing D6 damage, which is what D stands for, damage. So it can be quite interesting. Anyway, on to the final page. Actually, most weapons don't do that. Most weapons have 1 dice roll. Some weapons have 2 dice rolls, and like I say, they can be amazingly destructive or practically nothing, which is why most people avoid them and most weapons don't have them. Anyway, on next week's, we've got a bunch more Necron Warriors with Scarabs, build and paint guides and new playthrough rules. And then following that, we've got a Primaris Librarian. He will be my 4th Librarian, but this guy comes in camo and can hide. So, and he's got the cool sword the Librarians always have, which is, for my guys, getting taken straight off and replaced with an axe. So next week, you've got your Primaris Librarian, paint your Librarian, and wield psychic powers, as well as a medium dry brush. I have to say, whilst I found use for the Citadel dry brushes, I don't really rate them that well. They seem a bit rough to me. It always seems more like you want to gently drag them over rather than actually do that flickering dry brush action, which I tend to want a softer brush for, but that's just because I like a sort of softer and smoother gradient on my ones, I guess. Okay, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Again, sorry it was late. The dreaded Rona hit my household, and then another dreaded rogue decided to come in. We have been truly blessed by Papa Nurgle. May your guts and intestines roll out, and we will see you next week. However, oh, you almost forgot. James Martin, you're this week's winner of half a pack of Necrons. I'm going to do them separately because I just did. And I'm sick, so I didn't think about doing them together. I'll see you guys next week, and hopefully I haven't messed this up too much, man. Oh, I'm dying.